So I was kind of thinking earlier, can you believe how long this has been going on? Like seriously, I mean, time normally flies. Time flies so fast, it's absolutely ridiculous, but can you guys actually believe how long this has gone on this channel of reading emails from people sending them in about what they've seen? Isn't it it's a little bit much, don't you think? And to think that people actually still go out of their way to think that they need to prove they exist to the world. It's pretty bizarre, isn't it? Tens of thousands of people becoming brave and coming forward with what they see nonstop. What more do you need? I think if anything, one thing that everybody should understand is we aren't that good. You know, so many people, the human ego is such a fragile thing. It's a tough thing to master, you know. So many people be like, there's so many trail cameras, or all those hunters out there, you know, all the classic things they say, and all the phones out there, all the dash cams. People automatically think, well, it just can't be true. And meanwhile, not too many human beings can actually admit and say and accept the fact that we just aren't good enough. We're not smart enough yet. We haven't figured it out yet. We're not that smart yet. That is the fact. We don't have the knowledge yet. We probably used to, but it's been taken away from us, and as well, it's being kept from us. That's the problem. It's not the problem whether or not something exists or not. That is the problem, where the knowledge is being kept from us, right? We aren't smart enough. We aren't good enough. Our trail cameras aren't good enough. And it's just the way it is until somebody figures it out and busts through and shares that knowledge with the rest of the people. I'm sure many people have busted through, without a doubt, but we don't have the knowledge. We're not allowed to have it. Pretty bizarre. So let's keep sharing the voices, which creates more people, which creates more power, which creates more knowledge, right? That's what happens. That's what's happening here. Where are we going here? All right, here's one. This is titled My Encounter. Hi, Steve. Thanks for all you do. You give an incalculable amount of courage for so many to speak up about what they've experienced and an outlet to freely do so without fear. I stumbled on your videos and shares a month or so ago, and I've been hooked ever since. I believe it's because the majority of the shares are similar to my story. It was 4 years ago in 2018 when I had my encounter with whatever it was, or they were. I was hiking one of my favorite stretches of the AT a day or so after Christmas, enjoying the quiet of the North Georgia mountains. The weather was a perfect low to mid 60s and warm in the sunshine. I had passed one other person on the trail all day so far. That is my kind of day. It was a lone Forest Service worker doing some trail maintenance. She was an older woman and seemed a bit off to me, like she was scared or had something she wanted to say but didn't say. I moved fast, light and quiet, so I thought I may have surprised her as I came up the trail, attributed to her appearance to that and let it go. A couple miles later, making my way up the Tray Mountain, was when I first heard the screams. It was a loud howling scream or cry. I really thought nothing of the sounds, even though I saw no vehicles at the base of the mountain, in the gravel area by an old Forest Service road where the folks will park to make a short hike to the top for a view. A lot of kids will go up and yell or scream to see if they get an echo. Being only a couple hours drive from Atlanta, there are always some city people out for the first mountain experience. They do stupid stuff. So I expected to find just that at the top. A few minutes later, I made the top of the mountain where I found an older Asian couple. They're absolutely stoic and did not even acknowledge me as I passed by smiling, waving and saying, "Great day for a hike." I found that strange and thought they must have been praying or mourning a lost loved one or something like that. I've attributed the screams to them. I had attributed the screams to them, as they appeared okay but weird nonetheless. Maybe they were stoned, I thought to myself. On the way down the other side of the mountain towards a shelter, I noticed the woods were extremely quiet. It was a day or two after Christmas, so most of the small critters that made noise were not out. Or at least that is how I made myself feel better about the silence in hindsight. I also noticed I could hear and feel a rhythmic thumping. I really did not think much about that either. It was background noise to me. Living in a noisy suburb of Atlanta, you get used to noise and tune out. I kept on moving fast and quiet towards a shelter. The noise began to get louder as I did, and I thought, man, I was moving fast up that mountain. I can feel and hear my own heart rate in my head. I made it to the shelter where I'd been planning to eat some lunch. The whole time I sat there eating and having a cup of coffee, I could hear the thumping. I noticed I could also feel it in the ground. It was a quick thump thump followed by several rapid, equally audible and hard thumps, as though something very heavy was dropped and bounced a few times. The woods were eerily quiet otherwise. I'm not much of a believer, or never consider myself as such. I've always believed there is some rational explanation for any strange noise or sight. So, in my mind, this thumping must have been machinery somewhere nearby or something to that effect. There's a really reliable spring on the back side of the shelter where the old shelter once was, and it is a very popular spot for hikers to refill the water. Even in the dry months, the spring is flowing clear. I was pumping my water when it hit me, that feeling I was being watched. I'm not easily spooked and have spent many days, nights, and weeks alone in the woods. It's truly my happy place. I also don't spook easily as I'm always packing a pistol and have had many years of weapons and tactics training from a former life. There's not much in this world that I'm afraid of. I paused my water pumping for a moment, retrieved my .40 cal pistol from my pack along with an extra mag, just in case my gut was right. It was about this time when I realized this rhythmic thumping I'd been hearing was much closer and louder than before. I could feel it in the ground, I could see it in the water I was pumping from. I could also hear the top of one tree in particular as though it was being struck really hard at the base, and the treetop with the dry leaves still hanging, reverberating the vibrations. The base of the tree is just below sight, about 60 yards off a ridge from my location. I realized that the noise was not machinery and could not possibly be there, and could not possibly be as there is nothing around this area. No roads, no buildings, no civilization, or any type for many miles. I realized this noise was not background noise at all. I don't know of anything in nature that can create that kind of noise with that intensity. Anything in the wild that could create this noise and vibration would not be stopped easily with a 180 grain .40 cal hollow point either. That was the moment the other feelings and emotions hit me. The mixture of sadness, fear, anger, loneliness, hate, general disgust, and many other emotions was staggering. It was a feeling I've never felt before, a rush of emotions and feelings that still shakes me to my core as I write today. I had never spoken of that aspect of the encounter, and I've only told a couple of close friends about the encounter at all for fear of ridicule. That fear was not unwarranted, as there have been many jokes, but I let it roll off as always. After all, people who get spooked in the woods are either pansies or crazy Bigfoot storytellers, right? So I had kept this all to myself for the most part until now. I finished up my water, refilled and packed up my kit, but kept my pistol handy, just in case whatever this was decided to become an imminent threat. I made my way up the mountain back to the shelter and kept on moving, as I could still hear and feel the thumping. The thumping followed me just below the ridgeline as I made my way to the top of the tray. There was a nice little campsite near the top of Tray that has a lovely view this time of year. I'd planned to stop and camp there overnight, but thought better of it as the thumping was still going just below me on the ridgeline. It was moving from tree to tree as I moved down the trail. Whatever it was, or they were, did not want me there, and I could feel that in my every being. I headed down the mountain, and after a couple of miles, I realized the thumping had subsided, and I noticed the woods seemed alive once again. Still rattled, I ended up hiking all the way back out that night, came out of the woods after dark. There was no way I was sleeping anyway, so I might as well keep on moving. I made it back to my Jeep and headed for the house. It took some time before I ever told anyone about the experience at all. I kept questioning my own training and even my sanity at times. I kept replaying it over in my head for years. Still today, there's this burning desire to explain away what it was I heard, saw, and felt that day. I've been back to the mountain many times since looking for an explanation, but to no avail. I believe it is a commonality that all of us who have had an encounter have, that need for an explanation or answers. Another commonality those of us seem to have is many unexpected life changes after the experience. It seems many of us have several big unexplainable changes happen in the months/years after the experience, some for the better and some for the worse. I've had many of these life changes happen as well. Perhaps it's coincidence, but I also believe there to be some other forces at play. I think this is why others refer to us as believers. Feel free to share my story, but for now I would rather remain anonymous at this time. All right, man, you got it. You got it. That reminds me, one time, I think about 10 or 11 years ago, I was right in the heart of a very active area, which is still active today, before I decided I didn't want to look into these things intentionally. And I was looking into it intentionally, and I was east. I would say I was directly east-southeast of Tanquil Lake. I came up from the back side, which is the Pool Creek side, and I took my quad, and I was going to an area where I figured I would probably run into these things. And I got to the end of this road, which is deactivated now, and I was sitting on my quad at the end of the road, and I could hear a pounding on the ground. It sounded like a big boulder being pounded on solid ground in the spruce right below me, and I could hear it over top of my quad like nothing. And of course I did what most people do. I shit myself and turned around and took off. And then it was a handful of years later, I found out that there is a man who was leaving food for these beings basically back on that road. There's a bridge and there's a grassy patch, and from what I understand, from what was described to me, that is where this guy was leaving these forest people food for many years, and he has some photographs of them, which few people are looking for currently. He's passed away now. With that, your story reminded me of that, when I could hear that beating on the ground over top of my quad. And it was quite a while ago, and I just got the hell out of there. But there you go, man. You're not alone. I don't think people call us believers. I think they call us knowers, right? Possibly. All right, what's this one? It sounds like a familiar. I don't know if I read this or not. The title seems familiar. So I call it marked as red. It wasn't marked as red. Man, Bear, Pig. Hello, Steve. Well, this is the right place to send this stuff. My name is Michael Patrick. I grew up in the middle of the Appalachian Mountains of northern Pennsylvania. Spent years in the woods, stump jumping, hiking, camping, and raising hell from time to time. It's a place where you can go four-wheeling with thousands of trails to blaze with flat mountaintops and lots of places to explore. My first experience of fear was four-wheeling at dusk when the light of the four-wheeler hit something. I slammed on the brakes because it was in the middle of the trail. 6 feet tall, swaying to and fro. Big, black, and hairy. I peed a little. I realized I was letting out a high-pitched ee. Oh, hell no, I said. I wonder if you meant it was letting out a high-pitched ee. Because then you say, in quotes, oh, hell no, end quote, I said. Hammered the gas, and off the trail I flew. I don't know how fast I was going, but I blew its doors off. I wasn't looking back either, flying. I found a trail that connected me back to the main trail and made it to the local pub next to the trail system on my way home an hour later. I didn't know how to deal with what happened. I needed a beer. I went into the bar to have a beer to chill my nerves and reflect. I saw a friend in the bar having a beer, and I asked, are Sasquatch real? And he looked at me, smiled, chuckled a little bit. You saw Stubby, didn't you? He said. Stubby? I don't know. I told him where I was riding, and he said, yep. It's a bear that got hit by a car head on, smashed its face, messed up its front legs so it walks on 2 legs. A lot. Kind of looks like a pig face from the accident, huffing a long huh of relief. Man, I don't know what the hell I saw, but it freaked me out. I never saw it again out four-wheeling. I've heard others telling stories of this man, bear, pig thing. Whether or not it was a Sasquatch or a messed up bear, I don't know. Years later, I moved to West Virginia and saw eyes in the woods out back of my house and pulling into my driveway. Thinking it was my cat, I called for him. To my left, my cat meowed. Okay. If you're here, then who's out in the woods? Pulling out my O-light, I shined the light towards the woods. I saw the eyes again, then they stood up, and it was huge, really tall, black, huge. I found myself making the high-pitched ee sound again, followed by a hurried run in flip-flops as I'm hauling ass inside. It's kind of funny hearing the clapping and the flip-flops now when I think back to that night. If it wanted me, it would have got me. It was a nope, not today kind of moment. Next day I checked, no prints, nothing, nada. Still kind of freaked by that night. I've done tons of research since then, learning about the big hairy guys. It makes sense about them being savant. Gonna include a link for you to check out. I learned a lot from this link. Thanks for letting me share Watch Your Six, Mike. And there's no link. Mike, that's a pretty good excuse for somebody who doesn't want to accept the fact about those things. Saying, oh yeah, it's a bear, his face is smashed in from a car and his front legs are messed up, so he walks on his hind legs. That's a good one. That's creative. And if there is a bear like that, somebody would have a gazillion photographs of that thing hitting garbage cans in the backyard at a local dump, because that's the only way it would be able to survive, right? And bears are, black bears are very much out in the broad daylight. Anyway, here's what it is. You know what it was. You know what it was. Thanks for sending that in, man. Thanks for sending that in. All right, I don't know what this is. Call this as red right off the bat. Title, this is Kudos. I watched your videos recently and I'm very intrigued. I'm very impressed with the way you're presenting such a difficult topic to discuss. Although I've never had a first-hand experience, as so many of your viewers have, I've always believed that things exist in this world that are way more complicated and difficult to understand than most people can comprehend. You have alluded many times that there are groups who are attempting to dissuade you from continuing your expose, and I'd hope that an intelligent person such as yourself recognizes what the stakes are. I hope that you put together a permanent and comprehensive collection of your material and have it locked away in a safe place. I'll continue to watch your videos in the hopes that I can understand this phenomenon in the context of other mysteries of this earth that have always interested me, as the exploits of Admiral Byrd, which I believe may be connected to the phenomenon that you are reporting on. Good luck keeping up the good work. Good luck, keep up the good work, and I hope someday perhaps we can swap stories over campfire. Well, you never know. In the meantime, if you got some stories you want to share to everybody through me, do it, man. Do it. And yeah, I've got every single email I've ever read online is in some separate drives, for sure. Got them all. All right, here we go. Mark, this is red. You're gonna have to make this a shorter video today, guys. By the time you read this, I've already been on a road trip and probably back, but I gotta get moving. Wild boars, the monkey boy, and a fishing trip. All right. Please don't say my name. I work for the school system. I live in blank, and I don't need trouble. I was 8 years old. My friend Cindy was 9. I lived near Dale Hollow Lake on the Tennessee side. My parents owned and operated a bait shop with a snack bar. My friend Sydney lived about a half mile from me, and we spent a lot of time fishing, foraging, and camping during the summer months. One day we were hunting for mushrooms. We found a strange area in the forest. It was a perfect circle of short, slender, dead trees, no grass, and the ground was white. We thought it was sand, but it wasn't. It felt like dirt, but it was white. We walked around examining little trees in the ground. We used sticks to dig down into this white dirt to see how deep it went. We kept digging, and the dirt stayed white. So we gave up and decided to go home. We made our way back to the dirt road, heard a grunting sound. Over to our left was 3 wild boars. Cindy screamed, and the boars charged us. We ran a short distance, and I saw a tree that I could climb, and up the tree we went. If not for those thick vines in that tree, I doubt we would have been able to climb it. So we made it up to the branches, Cindy on one side, me on the other. There we were, terrified, crying, scratched up all over, and then here comes the 4th boar. He was a hoss. He looked like he had horns growing up from his nose. He actually looked up at us and let out a loud squeal and started headbutting the tree. Holy shit, no way. They all went into a frenzy, squealing and headbutting and biting at the tree. That would scare the shit out of anybody. I told Cindy to stop screaming because it was making them mad. I told her that we should be quiet and wait for someone to come looking for us. So we did stay quiet. And they did calm down a little bit, but they just wouldn't go away. They just walked around the tree, biting at it and headbutting it occasionally. We were up in that tree a good 2 hours. Whoa. And Cindy said, I got to pee so bad. I needed to go too, so we did. Might not want to read this part, but the audience might wonder how we managed it. We simply pulled the crotch of our shorts to the side and did it while holding onto the tree for dear life. Well, that did it. We peed on those boars and they got crazy mad. The big one was acting like he was going to try and climb up that tree. Cindy started screaming again and I was crying. And then I heard a voice, shh, I think I hear someone. Oh, and then I heard a voice, quote, shh, I think I hear someone, end quote. We tried to listen, hoping it was her big brother or my dad. Nothing. Then about 30 minutes later, here comes her brother, my dad, my uncle, and my grandpa. They had their guns and killed the boars right there under the tree. The big one charged at them, but he went down. Holy crap, that's like right out of a movie. Crazy. That voice I heard earlier was Cindy's brother. My mom had called him and asked him to go look for us because we were so late getting home. He saw the predicament we were in and came back with help. My dad, grandpa, uncle, and a few of their hunting buddies got together and cleared out as many of the boars as they could find. Cindy and I were afraid to go fishing, foraging, or exploring for the rest of the summer. But the next summer was different. Cindy's brother was 16 and we asked him to walk us down to the fishing hole and to bring his gun just in case. He was pretty cool and agreed to go. So he went with us 3 times and there's no sign of the boars, so we relaxed and started enjoying our usual summer fun. We showed him the white dirt area too. He said it was weird and that we should stay out of there. So one morning we got our fishing gear together, packed some P, B, and G sandwiches, walked down to the fishing hole. We're having a great day. We caught 5 good-sized brim, and just as I was bending over to put my catch on the line, something, a rock, hit my right butt cheek so hard that I jumped up and screamed. It hurt so bad. I thought I'd been shot with a BB gun. I knew what it felt like because my cousin had shot me with one. Cindy jumped up. What is it? I said, I think somebody shot my butt. I looked around the area, totally expecting to see my cousin hiding behind a tree, but no, that isn't what I saw. We saw him at the same time. Don't scream, just run, I said. The first thing I saw was his face. He was like dark brown, not a lot of hair on his face, a wide kind of flat nose, but his body was very hairy. His eyes flashed an orange color. That is what shook me out of the moment of shock, and that is when we took off running. We had to run uphill. We were in good shape, but an uphill run will slow you down. We kept looking back to see if he was chasing us, and he wasn't. I had to stop and catch my breath. He's not following us, Cindy. We were getting close to the edge of the woods, so we slowed down to a fast walk. There we were, fast walking along, and there he was again over to the right, squatting down, watching us. I pretended not to see him. I didn't turn my head, I didn't act like anything. I just thought if I acted like I didn't see him, he wouldn't hurt us, and he didn't. But he did throw another rock at us. It skipped off the ground between us, and we took off running again. We didn't stop running until we got to Cindy's front door. Cindy locked the door and was peeking through the curtain, and I was trembling all over. Literally, my whole body was shaking and even jerking. Cindy's brother said, "What's after you girls?" I couldn't even speak. Cindy said, "It's a monkey boy." I just nodded in agreement, and he asked, "What did you see?" And that is when I went down like a rag doll. I passed out. I woke up laying on the floor with Cindy holding my head in her lap, and she was crying. Her brother called my dad to come pick me up. My dad was freaked out and showed up with a rifle because he thought it was the boars again. Cindy told him through tears, no, it was a monkey boy, a big monkey boy. Cindy's brother looked at my dad and said, "I believe them." I spaced out, or I checked out. Something happened because the next thing I remember was my dad carrying me through the house and into my room. I just remember crying and trembling so hard, I felt so cold. I just wanted to cover up, and I made my mom get in bed with me and hold me tight. Wow, this is bringing back some strong emotions. I didn't expect that. I started turning a fever that night. I don't remember what my temperature was. I just remember my mom sticking the thermometer in my mouth several times through the night, and she gave me some baby aspirin. I wouldn't let my mom and dad leave the room that night. I woke up the next morning drenched with sweat, feeling weak and thirsty and scared. I showed my mom and dad the bruise on my cheek, and it was dark purple. It took forever to go away. My dad had to set up a cot in their bedroom for me. I just couldn't stand to sleep alone for a while. After a few days, Cindy and her brother came over to check on me. She looked at me and said, "Wow, you totally lost your tan." I was pale from fright. We told my parents the whole story with as much detail as we could remember. It was such a brief moment and it was terrifying. My mom told me and Cindy that we shouldn't talk about this to anyone because when people don't understand, they can get very mean. I didn't want to talk about it. I just wanted to forget about it. But that's not possible. No doubt. So that was the end of exploring the woods for me and Cindy too. The next summer, I was 10 years old. My mom and dad took me and a cousin fishing in the boat. We were fishing for catfish. It was getting kind of late. The sun wasn't down, but almost dark. Dad pulled the boat into the cove that he liked, and we sat there with our lines in the water, bobbers bobbing, just being quiet, and then it started. We could hear what I would describe as angry voices. We started reeling in our lines, and the voices got louder. It almost sounded like one of them said, what? But not exactly like we would say it. The other voice wasn't as loud, and no words could be made out, just gibberish. I started trembling and crying. My dad said, "It's just coyotes arguing over food, but we'll go home." I said, "No, Daddy, it's them, and they're mad because you and Grandpa killed their food." Then a huge boulder came flying out of the woods. It hit so close to the boat that we were splashed with water, and I heard it hit the rocks at the bottom of the lake. Kind of shallow area. I couldn't stop shaking and silently crying. I don't even remember how my cousin got home. I ran a fever that night, and I woke up drenched, weak, and thirsty, and couldn't sleep alone for a while. So that's my story, and I can say that the experience has had a lasting effect on me because to this day, 30 years later, if I get very upset about something or really scared, I'll run a high fever and wake up drenched, weak, pale, and thirsty. And you'll say, "No, now it's dehydration from the fever." Weird, huh? It is kind of weird. The only person I've told is my husband. I'm not sure he believed me until he asked my mom about it. Yeah, she had quite the reaction, and he believes me. Cindy and I are still friends. We do talk about it sometimes. It was traumatizing for her too, but she didn't experience the physical effects like I did. I thank you for giving us an opportunity to share experience and thoughts, typing it out and remembering the details, sure to bring up some strong emotions. I had to walk away and cry for a while when going over the second part, but I do feel better now. Holy shit. Sincerely, don't read my name. Okay, I got you. I won't read your name. And I absolutely am happy you sent that in to share, and I hope I'm pretty sure it's going to help you when you hear this getting shared online, because we've had way too many people email back in later on and say that it helped them a lot hearing their story shared here. So I'm quite certain that that is a reaction you're going to have while you're hearing this right now. And it would be interesting to hear what your father has had to say about the topic after the boulder hitting the water with him there. That'd be interesting to hear if he had any more input on the topic to you. If he said anything to you about what was going on or how to carry yourselves after that, or whether or not you're even going to go fishing again after that or whatever, right? It'd be interesting to hear what his thoughts were after he had that direct experience too. And then getting back to how when you get the fever, I was recently in the city with a doctor a little while ago, and he's jamming this frickin' needle in my arm, right in my elbow cork there. And I've got this thing going on right there. It kind of makes my nerves feel creepier than shit, like the chalkboard thing. I hate it. I'd rather, stick it in there if you want blood, or there. Stick it in here, I don't care. When you go in here, it really bugs the shit out of me, and I started to get kind of woozy. And what he told me was that there's actually therapy you can do if you have a thing for needles. And what it is, he didn't even question it. He said, "You had a bad experience with needles when you were a small child." I went, "Yeah, I did actually." He said, "Yeah, well, there's a therapy. I forget the name of it. I'll find out in the list below." He said there's a therapy you can do, and it'll take you right back to that moment. And when you're done with the therapy for it, boom, you don't give a shit about the needles. I wonder if I should try to, I'll get a hold of him again, because he's a very good guy, and he's very aware of what's going on in the world today, as well as this topic too. And I'll find out what the name of the therapy was, and I will bet you that it could possibly be applied to you at that moment that you had when you experienced seeing that thing. And I'll bet you it might clear up your fever reaction. Possibly, you never know. I'm gonna go look into that thing with the needles, because I can't stand needles. I mean, I'll take a needle, I don't give a shit. It was probably the second time in my life I took it, but he was digging around in my arm too. I'm like, Jesus, dude. You know, I've had a lot of needles. I've had a good fair handful of things happen to me in the past where I needed a pile of needles and surgeries and shit. I'm down, I'm good with it, what up? But it's the odd time, like when you watch a movie, the bad guy's gonna jam that needle in the person strapped to the chair, and I just kind of look away like, oh God. Isn't that funny, right? I'll go after a wounded grizzly bear and willow on my hands and knees, but the needle kind of freaks me out. So do spiders. Anyway, get back to you. Thanks again for making that share. Sending that in, and I hope it brings you comfort. I'm pretty sure it will. And again, it would be interesting to hear what your dad's thoughts were on the topic after he saw the boulder splash, right? Okay, that's it. I'm going in. I got to pack to leave early in the morning. I'll be back. Well, that's one of those sights you just have to stop and try to record to share with everybody when you see them, right? First light in the morning, a remote lake, a bit of a breeze, fog and mist and reflection, dead silence.